I always figured that if my life ever blew up, it would be something big and obvious, like a screaming fight or a dramatic confession. Instead, it started with a tiny circle of foil on the bathroom rug. I walked in that morning with the lights off, just a narrow strip of sunlight cutting across the tile. I almost stepped on the thing before that little glint caught my eye. When I bent down, I saw it was a round foil backing, about the size of my pinky fingertip. One side was smooth silver, the other side had a small number printed on it. 2. That 2 bothered me right away. It was Wednesday. A piece marked 2 should have been from Tuesday's pill. I was not taking any daily medication, and as far as I knew, my wife Emily was not either. We had both had recent checkups, and the doctor had practically patted us on the back, saying we were in great shape. I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was some random packaging from something we bought. But a knot formed in my stomach that I could not get rid of. The only daily pills that had ever been a regular thing in our house were Emily's birth control pills. And those were from years ago, before I had my vasectomy. Back when we decided we were done having kids, we agreed that I would get snipped. Emily had been on the pill for years, but we both thought it was more practical and safer long-term if I handled it. After that, she told me she stopped taking any birth control at all. Yet here I was, holding what looked like the foil from a daily pill pack. If she was still taking birth control, it meant one of two things. Either she did not trust my vasectomy, or she was worried about getting pregnant from someone else. In the past, I would have just asked her about it. I'm an engineer. I like clear answers. But something in me said, do not go in blind. Get your facts first. I put the foil back exactly where I found it, like I was resetting a crime scene, then headed to work with my mind buzzing. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and instead of reviewing project contracts, I found myself searching for home surveillance cameras, audio recorders, phone cloning tools, and private DNA testing kits. It felt sneaky and wrong. At the same time, I'd told myself that if I was going to accuse my wife, I needed solid proof, not just a scrap of foil and a bad feeling. Emily and I had 2 kids, 6-year-old Ethan and 4-year-old Lily. I loved those kids more than anything. I'd never doubted in a second that they were mine. But after seeing that foil, old memories started twisting in my head. If she could lie about pills, what else could she lie about? I ordered the cameras, recorders, and DNA kits, all shipped to my office so she wouldn't see any of it at home. Those couple of days waiting for the packages felt like weeks. I studied Emily carefully without making it obvious. She didn't suddenly start dressing differently. She didn't stay out late without explanation. We still slept together once or twice a week, usually early in the morning before the kids woke up. Nothing smelled strange, nothing looked off. If she was cheating, she was doing a careful, professional job at hiding it. By Friday, the packages arrived at my office. I pretended I had a light day at work, told my team I was heading home early, and drove back with the gear in my trunk. Our nanny, a young woman named Carla who helped with the kids while Emily and I worked, was in the kitchen feeding them when I slipped upstairs with the boxes. I set up small cameras in the bathroom, our bedroom, and the living room. I angled them so they looked like ordinary little gadgets tucked on shelves. The bathroom camera mattered most. If Emily was really back on birth control, that was where I would see it. That night, after the kids were asleep, I took the DNA kits out of the box and did cheek swabs on Ethan and Lily. They giggled and thought it was some silly dad's science game. Then I swabbed my own mouth and packed everything up to mail to the lab. The estimate said the results would be ready within about 48 hours after the samples arrived. When Emily came home that evening, she acted completely normal. We talked about work, the kids, what to watch on television, all the usual small talk. Inside, I felt like I was sitting across from a stranger. Later, while she showered, I snuck out to her car, taped a voice recorder up under the front passenger seat, and then went back inside to clone her phone using software I'd installed in my laptop. By the time I was done and back in bed, there was nothing suspicious on the copy of her phone. No flirty messages, no odd late-night calls, no hotel confirmations. Either I was wrong about everything, or she was hiding her tracks on something else. The weekend rolled by like any other. We went to the park with the kids, did chores, had the sort of plain, half-asleep intimacy that felt more like checking a box than making love. I tried to act normal, but I was restless, waiting for the cameras and the clones to give me answers. On Monday, Emily headed to work, and I told her I would work from home to catch up on some projects. As soon as she drove away, I pulled the micro memory cards out of the cameras and loaded the footage onto my computer. The bathroom recording showed her taking a small white pill at about the same time every day. She stood by the sink, opened a blister pack, popped a pill into her mouth, and washed it down with water. There was no doubt about it. She was on birth control again. My chest went tight, but I forced myself to keep watching. The bedroom camera showed something I had not expected. On Saturday evening, while I was downstairs cooking dinner, she came out of the shower, sat on the bed, and pulled out a phone I had never seen before. It was not the one I had cloned. She tapped out a message quickly, then walked over to the air conditioning vent near the floor, carefully loosened the cover, and hid the phone inside before screwing it back on. That was when my suspicion turned into certainty. Emily had a secret phone. No wonder her regular phone looked clean. That night, after she went to bed, I checked the vent from the other side, in Lily's room. The phone was not there. She must have moved it to her purse or somewhere else. So I waited, telling myself I would get another shot soon. A couple of days later, I heard the shower running again and saw her regular phone on the nightstand. That meant the hidden phone was probably back in its spot. I slipped into Lily's room, quietly removed the vent cover, and there it was, a slim, plain black phone. My hand shook as I grabbed it and hurried to my home office. I plugged it into my laptop and cloned all the data to a spare phone I had bought for that exact purpose. My heart was pounding the whole time. As soon as the copy finished, I rushed back, slid the original phone into the vent, tightened the screws, and went into Lily's room to check on her. Seconds later, Emily walked in, towel wrapped around her, and saw me there. "Could not sleep," I said. She smiled faintly and walked away. I tried not to show the adrenaline still coursing through me. The next morning at my office, I finally opened the cloned phone. Within seconds of reading the messages, my throat went dry and my eyes filled with tears. The texts were graphic and direct. There were jokes about stolen afternoons in hotels, about how I never suspected a thing, about how they worked around my travel schedule. The man's name never appeared, but the way they talked made it clear he was someone she worked closely with, someone she wanted to keep off the record. I sat at my desk, crying silently. I didn't even answer the intercom when my assistant, Rachel, pinged me. Eventually, she knocked and opened the door without waiting. Rachel was in her early 40s, sharp, steady, and usually all business. She picked up my phone, with my permission, and texted Emily that there was an urgent problem at the Chicago office and I had to fly out that afternoon. Emily replied that she was sorry and hoped I would be back soon. Then Rachel handed me a business card. "This is Lauren Hayes. She handled my divorce. She's very good. Go see her before you leave town." 2 hours later, I was sitting in Lauren's office, still feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Lauren was a calm woman in her 50s with a lawyer's poker face. She listened carefully, asked blunt questions, and laid out my options. Do nothing, file for a quiet divorce, or go in hard and file on grounds of adultery and fraud, which would wreck Emily's bargaining position and limit what she could get from me. I thought about it. Do nothing? Impossible. File amicably and give her half of what I've worked for when there's a chance that kids weren't even mine? That felt like rewarding a lie. In the end, the anger in me spoke first. "I want the hardest option," I said. "If she's been doing this for years, I'm not handing over my life on a silver platter." Laura nodded. "Then we gather more evidence, lock down your finances, and move fast. I'll need a copy of that secret phone." I handed over the cloned device without hesitation. After the meeting with Lauren, I was supposed to head to the airport, but Rachel intercepted me with another plan. "First we see Tom," she said, meaning my business attorney, Tom Carter. He had been with our engineering firm from the early days and knew every shareholder rule by heart. Tom reminded me that our company required all partners to sign prenuptial agreements before marriage, specifically to protect the firm. That meant Emily's legal reach would be limited mostly to my personal salary and assets like the house, savings, and retirement accounts. The company itself and the shares tied to it were shielded. His advice was blunt. Buy out your partner, Dave. He's been hinting for months that he is ready to retire. If you buy him out now and push as much of your liquid cash as possible into the company, you will look almost broke on paper. The more you have inside the company, the less she can touch. The idea was aggressive, but it was legal. I called Dave right away. When he asked why I wanted to share so suddenly, I answered flatly, "Emily has been cheating on me. This might get ugly." There was a pause on the line, then he said he was sorry and agreed to sell nearly all his shares, keeping a small 5% piece as a consultant. We met for lunch, signed the preliminary paperwork, and shook hands. Afterward, Rachel and I sat in my parked car and opened the DNA results on my phone. She insisted on reading them first. Her face changed as she looked at the screen, and she handed the phone back to me slowly. "I'm sorry, Mark," she said. The report was clear and cold. Both kids shared the same biological father, and that man was not me. My hands went numb as I scrolled through the results. Ethan's first word flashed into my mind, Lily's first steps on the living room rug, all the late nights with fevers and the early mornings with cereal and cartoons. And now a simple chart on a phone was telling me none of that came from my own blood. A wave of rage hit me so hard I had to steady myself against the dashboard. For a second, I actually thought I might throw up. Rachel's voice cut through, firm but not unkind. "You have to stay focused," she said. "If you lose it now, she wins. Do not give her that." We went straight back to Lauren's office. Lauren already had new information. She had hired a private investigator as soon as I left her earlier. "He watched your house last night," she said. "A man showed up, let himself in with his own key. We have video of him entering. Your son greeted him with Daddy Chris." My heart stumbled. Chris Lane, that was Emily's longtime boss, a senior executive at her company. He had been at company barbecues, holiday parties, kids' birthdays. I had shaken his hand. I had thanked him for giving Emily opportunities. Now I watched grainy footage of my son, no, of a boy I loved but who was not biologically mine, running into another man's arms, calling him Daddy Chris. Lauren checked Chris's background. The company had a strict policy about relationships between executives and subordinates. "We can go after the company for not enforcing their own rules," she said. "We can also go after him for alienation of affection, and we can go after Emily for fraud and any false statements on birth records." She started listing possible claims, one after another, all of them designed to hit hard. By the time she was done, I felt hollow. I didn't even check into the Chicago hotel Rachel had booked under my name. Instead, she insisted I stay in her spare room back in our own city. "You shouldn't be alone right now," she said. There was nothing romantic about it. It felt more like a friend refusing to leave another friend sitting in the dark with a bottle. Over the next few days, things moved quickly. Tom drew up the final documents for the buyout from Dave. I cashed out my retirement accounts, paying the penalty, and put every cent I legally could into the company, paying down internal loans and buying more shares. On paper, my personal net worth dropped like a stone. In reality, the value was simply sitting behind a legal wall Emily couldn't touch. Once the business side was secure, Lauren pulled the trigger. On Monday morning, she filed for divorce on grounds of adultery, fraud, and intentional emotional harm. At the same time, she filed a lawsuit against Emily's employer for failing to uphold their non-fraternization policy and set up a separate suit against Chris personally for alienation of affection. Process servers were waiting. One was assigned to hand Chris his papers at work, one to deliver the suit to the Corporate Human Resources Department, and one to place the divorce packet right on Emily's desk. The timing was coordinated down to the minute. At 10 o'clock on the dot, I got an email notification that the divorce papers had been served. Within 10 minutes, my phone started buzzing. I looked down, expecting Emily's number. Instead, it was my mother. "Mark," she said sharply as soon as I answered, "what is this?" "Did you read the letter?" I asked. Lauren had suggested I send a detailed letter to my parents before the legal storm hit, so they would hear the story from me first. "I read it, and I don't believe it. This is Emily we're talking about. Your wife, the mother of your children. How can you just throw them all away?" "They're not my children," I said. The words felt like gravel in my throat. She went quiet for a moment, then she said, "They're yours in every way that matters. You raised them. You've been there from the beginning. Are you really saying that means nothing? I'm saying the whole thing was built on a lie. I didn't get a choice. That matters to me. So now you're going to punish those kids for something Emily did. You don't think they'll suffer because you decided you're not their father anymore? She demanded. I can't talk about this right now. And I hung up. My phone rang again almost immediately. This time it was Emily. Mark, we need to talk, she said, her voice shaking. I'm coming home, I answered, and hung up before she could say another word. Home meant the house that was in my name, the house where we had built a fake life together without me knowing it. Rachel drove me there and then left, saying she would be nearby if I needed her. I sat in my home office, reading email after email from relatives who had already received copies of the legal filings. Some were angry, some were confused, a few were supportive. My father said very little, just that he would stand by me even if he did not like all my choices. About 20 minutes later, Emily walked into the office without knocking and shut the door behind her. She looked wrecked, eyes red, hair messy, hands shaking. Mark, she started. I am not interested, I cut in. Just let me explain, she said. I am not interested in your explanation, I repeated. You have been lying to me for 9 years. You kept taking birth control while I was getting a vasectomy, and you were sleeping with your boss the whole time. Neither of the kids is mine. You used me as a cover for your affair. There's nothing you can say that changes any of that. She flinched. What about the kids? She asked. What kids? I said. I do not have any kids. You made sure of that. Her mouth opened like she might argue, then closed again. I pointed toward the hallway and raised my voice. Carla, can you come in here for a minute? Our nanny stepped into the doorway, looking nervous. You are fired, I told her, effective immediately. Pack your things and leave. Her face went pale. What? Why? Because you helped cover this up, I said, pointing at Emily. You knew she was sleeping with her boss. I have video of you talking to him about the kids. Maybe you didn't know they were his and not mine, but you knew there was something going on and you kept it from me. Mark, you cannot fire her, Emily snapped. I'm the one who pays her. I shook my head. I have already told the agency what happened. They agreed to remove her from their roster if I do not sue. If you want to keep her, you can hire her directly, but then you get to handle every tax form, every benefit, every legal responsibility yourself. Good luck finding another family through an agency after this. Carla's shoulders slumped. She looked at Emily, then back at me. I'm sorry, she whispered, and hurried out of the room. Did you have to do that? Emily asked, tears spilling over. She does not deserve... You're talking again, I cut her off. I told you I do not want to hear it. Pack your things, take your kids, get out of my house. This is my house too, she shot back. The deed says otherwise. Until a judge says different, this place is in my name alone. You can talk to my lawyer if you have questions. Now leave. Just then, Ethan poked his head into the room. Mommy, he said, Lily fell down. Emily wiped her face and hurried out to check on her. I closed my office door and stayed there while she gathered clothes, toys, and whatever else she could grab quickly. A few minutes later, she came back, Lily on her hip. Are you going to say goodbye to... Don't say it, I interrupted. She is not my daughter. He is not my son. Take them to Chris and let him be their father. That is what he wanted anyway. Mark, please, she said. Get out, I replied. She left, and the front door shut behind her. That was when I finally broke. I sank into my chair and sobbed. A couple of minutes later, Rachel slipped in through the side door. She must have been waiting in her car. She sat beside me and just let me cry until there was nothing left in me but a dull ache. The next few weeks were a blur of court dates, meetings, and paperwork. Emily tried to hit back. At one point, she even filed for a restraining order claiming I was emotionally unstable and a threat. Lauren countered with the timeline, the recordings, and every piece of evidence showing I had been the one quietly gathering proof while she carried on the affair. The judge didn't buy Emily's claim for long. The temporary order keeping me away from the house was overturned, and Emily moved in with her parents. Meanwhile, Lauren's lawsuit against her company gathered steam. When Human Resources realized that a senior executive had been having a long-term affair with a subordinate and had fathered 2 children with her, they moved quickly. Chris was fired for violating the non-fraternization policy. The company wanted to make the problem disappear, so they started settlement talks with Lauren. At the same time, the separate lawsuit against Chris personally for alienation of affection moved forward. He had money, but he also had a reputation to protect, and he knew that a public trial would drag every detail into the spotlight. In the end, the company agreed to pay a large settlement. Chris, backed into a corner, agreed to pay me personally as well. The money helped me pay off the internal company loans and put me in a solid financial position. On paper, it was a clear win. Emotionally, it didn't feel much like a victory. I had lost the kids I loved, even if biology said they weren't mine. Emily tried to use Ethan and Lily as leverage, calling and asking me to stay in their lives. Every time I pictured their faces, all I could see was Chris standing in my living room with a key in his hand. I couldn't handle it. Maybe that was cowardly. Maybe one day I would regret it. At that moment, though, I said no. I had to protect what was left of my sanity. I sold the house at a loss and moved out. I couldn't stand walking past the spot where I'd watched the video of Daddy Chris coming through the front door. For a while, I stayed in Rachel's spare room. We kept things polite and simple. At work, she was as professional as ever. Outside of work, she checked in on me more than anyone else, cooking simple dinners, dragging me out for walks, reminding me to show up, shaved and dressed, to meetings. The divorce was finalized a few months later. I was sitting at my desk when the envelope arrived with the official decree. My marriage to Emily was legally over. I felt light and heavy at the same time. One chapter had closed, but it had taken a chunk of my heart with it. Just as I set the papers down, my phone rang. It was Rachel. "Chris Lane is dead," she said. Her voice was steady, but her words landed like a hammer. "What happened?" I asked. "His wife found him with Emily again. There was an argument. She shot him. He didn't make it." I sat there, stunned. In a strange, cold way, it made sense. He had blown up my life with his choices. Now his own life had literally exploded. I didn't feel sorry for him. I also didn't cheer. It just felt like the universe closing a door I never opened in the first place. A minute later, Rachel walked into my office carrying another envelope. "This came too," she said, setting it on my desk. Inside was the final settlement payment from Chris's side. It was more than enough to wipe out the remaining debt I had taken on during the restructuring. On paper, I was now free. No marriage, no personal debt, and a fully protected stake in the company I had helped build. My old life had been stripped down to the bare frame. Rachel closed my office door gently and turned back toward me. Before I could say anything, she stepped forward and kissed me. It was not tentative or uncertain. It was firm and full of everything she had been holding back for years. When she pulled away, my heart was pounding for a very different reason. "For 9 years, I have watched out for you," she said quietly. "You were the most decent man I know. You never crossed a line with me, even when your life was falling apart. I have waited a long time, Mark. If you will let me, I want to show you that not every woman lies, and not every relationship ends in betrayal." I thought back over all those late nights at the office, all the times she had stepped in, calm and steady, whenever something went wrong. She had been standing beside me the whole time, and I had been too focused on my marriage to see it. I also remembered what the urologist had told me years ago after my vasectomy, that reversals often worked out just fine for men my age. I had assumed fatherhood was off the table forever. Now a small spark of hope lit up inside me. My voice shook a little when I spoke. "How many kids do you think we should have?" I asked. Rachel smiled, one of those real, warm smiles that reach the eyes. "At least 2, she said, "but let us just see where this goes." She leaned in and kissed me again. For the first time in months, the future did not feel like a wall. It felt like a road. Looking back, it's hard not to see the whole thing as one long lesson in consequences. Emily lied for years, and in the end, she lost her marriage, her easy financial future, her job security through Chris, and the comfortable story she had built around herself. Her lover lost his position, his money, and eventually his life in a violent mess of his own making. The company that let all of it slide had to pay dearly to clean up the fallout. The nanny who kept quiet about what she saw lost her job and her agency support. Every person who played a part in the deception ended up paying a price one way or another. I'm not saying I walked away untouched. I lost the kids I thought were mine. I lost years of trust. I learned that the woman I had promised my life to was capable of looking me in the eye and lying without flinching. But I also walked away with something they did not have: a clean conscience, a solid base to rebuild on, and a chance at a real future with someone who had already proven she would stand in the fire with me instead of lighting it behind my back. In the end, justice did not look like a judge giving a speech. It looked like the truth coming out and everybody finally having to live with what they had done. If there's one thing I took from all of this, it is that ignoring your instincts is a good way to get hurt. That tiny piece of foil on the bathroom floor was easy to dismiss, but something in me knew it mattered. The second lesson is that trust is not blind. Real trust comes with honesty. Once honesty is gone, you're not in a marriage anymore. You're in a performance, and you might be the only one who doesn't know it. For anyone going through something similar, here's the advice this plain American guy can offer. Don't jump to conclusions, but don't bury your head in the sand either. If something feels wrong over and over again, get the facts. Protect yourself legally and financially before you light any matches. Anger can destroy you faster than it punishes the person who hurt you. Remember that being a good person doesn't mean being a doormat. Walking away from someone who lied to you for years is not cruelty, it's self-respect. I learned that sometimes heartbreak is the price of freedom. It hurts like hell, but once the dust settles, you can finally see who was really standing beside you the whole time. In my case, that person was Rachel, not Emily. And if there's such a thing as karma, I watched it do its work, slow and steady, until the truth was all that was left on the table.